We play a really unique instrument, and I remember as a kid sitting down at the drums and feeling like I was in the driver's seat of a car or the cockpit of an airplane, and it was one of the first things that really drew me to them. The drums are also one of the most customizable instruments ever. There are thousands of ways that you can set this thing up. You can have a more minimalistic setup like I do, or you can get creative and come up with something totally unique. And yes, all that customization can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a real challenge to set everything up properly because you have so many different variables that you have to contend with. And while there are technically no rules as to how you have to set this thing up, there are some universal principles that will have a huge effect on your playing that you need to bear in mind. And I've noticed over the years of gigging and touring that the drummers out there in the field, doing the work day after day, have a very similar setup process that allows us to dial things in consistently. And that's what I want to share with you today. Alright, as you can see, I've cleared out the room so I can start from scratch and bring in one piece of gear at a time, and that's something I'd highly recommend that you do as well. You don't want to start by getting everything up and kind of into position and then sitting down and tweaking all of it at the same time. That's not going to allow you to focus on the two most important principles when it comes to setting the drums up properly. And those principles are your balance and your ergonomics. And ergonomics is just a fancy word for your mobility and comfortability as you move around the drums. If these two principles are not present in your setup, then you're not going to be able to loosen up, you're not going to be able to play with good posture, using your body's natural mechanics, and that's going to negatively influence your playing, and it could even lead to injury because we play such a physical instrument. So to do this the right way, you want to bring things in methodically, and the best place to start is with the bass drum. Start by facing it whichever direction you want your kit's 12 o'clock to be. So if you're on a stage, it's usually best to go straight out to the audience, but if you're in a practice space, it's totally your call. Do whatever works best for the size and shape of your room. Before you attach your pedal, make sure that your bass drum feet are positioned in a way where the front of your bass drum is lifted off the ground by about an inch or two. That'll put the drum at the right angle to receive the bass drum pedal and stay firmly planted on the ground when you play. Next, attach your pedal and make sure you have it centered on the bass drum hoop so it doesn't pull on the drum in any kind of weird way. Next up, it's time to position the throne, which is one of the most important aspects of the setup because it sets a foundation for our balance and our posture. And there's a simple 3-step process that I want to share with you that'll get you where you need to be. So bring your throne up and sit down behind your bass drum like I am, and I want you to notice something. If you face the same direction, that 12 o'clock direction as your bass drum, then your legs are going to naturally face outward if you're keeping them relaxed. And I see many drummers out there facing this way because they think they should, and then they bring in their leg to put it on the bass drum pedal. The problem with this is that you're not going to be able to relax because you're now holding a little bit of tension in your leg. You're using muscles to hold yourself into this position. And that's the opposite of what you want to do. You always want to adjust the kit to your body and not your body to the kit. So step one for placing your throne is to get your body angled in a way to where your legs can be relaxed and your feet are straight on your pedals. And you're going to notice when you get settled in that you're not going to be facing the same direction as your bass drum. You're instead going to be facing a little to the left at around 11 o'clock. And by the way, I'm obviously a right-footed and right-handed drummer like probably most of you out there, but if you're a lefty, no worries at all. Just apply the principles of what I'm talking about to your particular setup. All right, now that you have your body's angle in relation to the bass drum figured out, steps 2 and 3 are now to fine-tune your throne's distance and height. A good starting point for this is to have your thighs around parallel to the ground and your knees above your ankles. With this position, you're firmly planted on the throne, giving you a good sense of balance, and you also have a lot of leverage with your feet on the pedals, no matter what foot techniques you use. So with our distance from the pedal in mind, let's test it out. If you're a heel down player, which means you keep your heel on the pedal and bend at your ankle to play, you want to make sure that you have a full range of motion. On the other hand, if you play heel up, which is where you lift and drop your leg while keeping the ball of your foot on the pedal board, you want to make sure you're able to bounce on that pedal board properly, but still drop your leg to let it rest in between strokes. If that position feels good, then stick with it. It is common, however, for some people to feel a little bit cramped there, and if that's you, I would try scooting back a little bit, which will bring your ankle out in front of your knee, which can often give you a little bit more leverage, especially if you bounce the beater against the head. If you prefer burying the beater in the head, you might actually find it more comfortable to sit closer to the bass drum, where your knee is actually in front of your ankle, because it puts a little bit of natural resistance on the pedal, making it easier to hold the beater against the head. Alright, for the third and final step, you want to shift your focus to your throne's height. Heel down players usually do just fine at this stock height where their thighs are parallel to the ground, but there are players out there that like to sit above the kit and look over everything. And if that's you, just raise your throne up a bit, feel it out. Just be careful not to go too high to where you can't sit squarely on the throne. Now for heel up players, the throne height actually has a much more profound effect because you have to deal with lifting the weight of your leg. Think about it, if your thighs are parallel to the ground, then all of your leg's weight is out in front of you. And for some drummers, that's no problem at all. In fact, there are drummers out there that sit even lower than parallel because it really grounds them in the throne, and they like to kind of play inside the drum set and reach up a bit as they hit everything. Oftentimes, however, that lower stance can make it challenging to lift your leg up and down over and over again, and that can mess with your balance. And there are a lot of drummers that actually prefer sitting higher and above their kit when they play. So if any of that sounds like you, I would try raising your throne up a bit. You're going to notice that you can still sit on your throne confidently so long as you don't go too high, but your leg's weight is now going to be shifted closer to your body, making it easier to lift and keeping your center of gravity more stable. So those are the 3 steps. You get your throne placed where you're at the right angle in relation to your bass drum that allows you to have your legs relaxed and your foot square on the pedal. Then after that, you dial in your distance from the pedal and then your seat height. And obviously there's a relationship between these 3 steps where if you adjust one of the positions, then the other 2 are a little bit different as well. And so there's an intuitive process that needs to take place where you experiment and figure out what's right for you. Next up, it's time to bring in the hi-hats. You want to do the same thing for your left leg that you did for your right. So go ahead and get situated on the throne and have your right foot on the bass drum pedal, and then see where your left leg naturally rests and put your hi-hats there. Now that you have both of your feet on pedals, try to play for a little bit and test out how you're feeling. First, just start with the bass drum. Are you able to do what you need to do without losing your balance? Oftentimes, the left leg serves as a counterbalance to our right leg, where you put a little bit of your weight on the left leg to keep you in position as you move and lift your right. Next, try your left leg. Are you able to play it comfortably with heel up and heel down technique? Now try both feet. You can start with simple unison strokes. You can do alternating strokes, or you can do more complex patterns. Some drummers like it where their pedals are equidistant from their body. Others like it where the hi-hat pedal is a bit closer in, which allows them to lean into that pedal a bit for that counterbalancing effect. These are the kind of things you want to be thinking about and experimenting with. Alright, it's now time to move on from these pedals, but before you do, I want you to really think about what just happened there. We spent a long time just now only thinking about our throne position and our pedal positions. And that's very different than what most people tend to do. Most people are thinking all about their hands and about all this stuff up here, and then they wonder why they don't feel comfortable when they play. And it's because they have not set themselves up with a firm foundation, and so their balance will always suffer. And that's the beauty of setting things up methodically and bringing things in one step at a time. And with that said, go ahead and grab your snare drum and put it right between your legs. If you've done things right up to this point, you're going to notice that your snare drum fits perfectly at that 11 o'clock angle that you're facing. And what that should tell you is that the snare drum is the center of your universe when you're playing the drums. The bass drum is the centerpiece of the drum set for the audience when they look at the kit, but our center is the snare drum. So you want to make sure it feels like home when you're playing it. So first get your back nice and straight, and then drop your arms down by your side and just let them relax. and then you just bend at your elbows to bring your hands up to a comfortable position. And at this point, you want to check that the tip of your drumsticks are directly over the center of your snare drum. You don't want to have to extend your arms out or bring them back in to get them to the center. You just want to have your arms relaxed by your side and they're hovering over the center. After that, you want to double check the height of your drum and make sure you're able to make contact with the center without accidentally striking the rim. If you're a rim shot player, you want to make sure you're able to get those rim shots without striking your legs. Next up, now that we've got the snare drum figured out, we want to go to the next most common used zone, which is right here between the bass drum, snare drum, and hi-hat, where we're playing grooves and laying it down. To test this position out, you want to again just drop your arms by your side and relax them. You then bring your hands up and double check. Are you able to make contact exactly where you want to without having to reach your arm out or bring your arm back? Again, you want to make the kit adapt to your body and not your body to the kit. So you want to just be chilling as you play grooves. Real relaxed, real comfortable, everything where it needs to be. So if it's not, make those adjustments, bring that hi-hat in, bring it out, bring that snare in or out until you get it dialed in. You also want to double check that you have enough distance between your hi-hats and the snare so you're not accidentally clicking your sticks together. Be sure that you're taking your time here in this kick, snare, hi-hat zone, because if you can't loosen up here, you're definitely not going to be able to loosen up when you add even more pieces to it. Now that you've got the core of your setup ready to go, you can build outwards using the same principles. So the next logical step is to bring in your toms. Typically, you want the floor tom at about the same height and position as your snare drum, just on the opposite side of your bass drum pedal. For the rack tom or rack toms, if you have multiple, you want them about an inch or two away from your snare and floor tom and a few inches above so you don't have to reach too far as you move around. It's also good to angle them slightly towards you so you don't accidentally hit the rim. When you think you have them set up right, try moving around the kit a bit to test them out. You'll notice as you play that you're now having to extend your arms a bit to reach the rack tom or rack toms, and you'll likely have to twist your body or move your right arm back to reach the floor tom. But this is normal and okay because we're now leaving our home base. This is not the center of our kit anymore, so you can go off and play some fills, play a tom groove here and there, and adjust your body to do that, but then you'll always be coming back to your comfort zone afterwards. Next up, you want to move out a bit further and position your ride cymbal. The ride is placed directly to the right of your bass drum, a few inches higher than your rack tom or rack toms, and close enough to where you can reach about the middle of it with your arm still relaxed by your side. Another good thing to do is to angle it slightly towards you so you're not accidentally hitting the edge of it when you don't want to. I would also test out transitioning from the ride to the hi-hats and back. Just kind of going back and forth as you groove because, we're usually either playing the hi-hats when we play a beat or we're on the ride. So I like to make them about the same distance from each other so my right arm can just move back and forth without having to make any weird adjustments. Now it's time to move out even further to the crash cymbals. If you only have one crash cymbal, I'd position it right here on the left side of your kit to the left of your rack tom. And you want it a few inches above everything so when you hit it and it moves, it doesn't run into anything else. If you have two crashes, I'd position the other one on the right side of your kit to the right of your ride symbol and a few inches higher as well so it doesn't smack the ride when it moves. After you have them approximately placed and the heights figured out, I would dial in the distance from your body, and I like to have them pretty much equidistant from my body, so I just have my arms down by my side, and then I measure the distance with my drumsticks. If they're about the same, this is where I want them. When you think you've got them into position, go ahead and test them out a bit by playing some fills and moving around the kit and incorporating them into what you're doing. So that's it. You've now got your kit dialed in, and as you continue to test it out and move around, you can now start to fine-tune your positions without worrying about screwing something up because your foundation is set. And the real test is really as you're practicing and performing, and you're getting in that zone, and you can basically close your eyes as you're moving around and have everything be where you anticipate it should be. That's when you know that you've got this thing truly set up. But that's going to do it for this one, everybody. I really hope that this helps you out. Thanks as always for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all next time. You take it easy. Bye-bye.